YNW Melly has been rotting in that cell for 6 long years, praying for a verdict that never seemed like it would drop. But guess what? That moment has finally arrived. The streets are buzzing. Folks are saying the delay was no accident. They were buying time just so they could slap him with the death penalty. Now that Florida quietly rewrote the rule book, that's why they waited so long to take him to drop. They was waiting for that law to pass. The verdict finally dropped. And let me be clear, nobody saw this one coming. In this video, we're diving deep from the law Florida rewrote behind closed doors to the courtroom drama that felt straight out of a crime doc. And of course, Melly's jaw-dropping reaction when that decision finally landed. Let's unpack it. For 6 long years, YNW Melly has been locked up in a cell, trapped in a limbo that felt like purgatory. His case was heavy, no doubt, but the process, slower than a frozen clock. Pre-trial hearings dragged on forever, while Melly's legal squad kept filing for bond, but the prosecution wasn't having it. They pushed back hard, arguing the charges were too serious, and Melly might dip the judge. He backed the state result. Melly stayed behind bars, with his fate up in the air. So what caused all these delays? Well, it wasn't just legal chaos. It was messy evidence and a whole lot of red tape. Melly's pre-trial lockup stirred massive public outrage. Fans were screaming for his release, while critics said, "Nah, keep him locked." It became one of the most heated legal battles in hip-hop history. The whole saga began to mirror another infamous case. TK real name, Tamora McIntyre. His story, a cautionary tale. Back in 2016, TK was arrested for capital murder tied to a home invasion. Because of his age, they gave him house arrest, but TK had other plans. On March 27, 2017, he cut off his ankle monitor and vanished. A full-blown, nationwide manhunt followed, and TK used it to go viral. He dropped the Resea track, bragging about being on the run while literally on the run. The video, him posing next to his own wanted poster, millions watched it. But behind the clout was real blood. While on the run, he allegedly took part in another murder. This time in San Antonio, a drug deal gone wrong led to the death of Mark Salivar. Now the courts had not one but two murders to charge him with. Eventually, U.S. Marshals caught up with him in New Jersey. The escape was over, but the trial had just begun in July 2019. TK was sentenced to 55 years for the first murder and robbery charges, and later that year he was indicted again for Salivar's death. If convicted, he could face life in prison or even death. The prosecutors on Melly's case, they weren't taking chances. They told the judge straight up, "We're not risking another Tig situation." That fear of a high-profile artist turning fugitive haunted every bond hearing Melly had, and it sparked a national debate. Was this justice, or was Melly being punished before a trial even happened? For Melly's team, the delay gave them time to build a strong defense, but for Melly as a human being, it meant years of mental torture, career suicide, and lost time he'll never get back. Social media had a field day. Free Melly started trending. Petitions circulated, fans screamed for fairness. But the other side was louder. 2 people are dead. This ain't about fame, it's about justice. Media outlets poured gasoline on the fire. True crime podcasts, clickbait headlines, and viral TikToks turned the trial into a circus, and every time someone said, "Let him go," a wave of "remember the victims" hit back. Melly's fame made it worse. The court feared that his influence could lead to witness tampering, evidence destruction, or worse, another escape. That's why the judge said, "No bond," every time this case turned into a symbol. Advocates began using it to talk about the broken bail system, pre-trial jail conditions, and how long defendants can sit in jail with no verdict, even though the charges were deadly serious. The spotlight was now on the system itself, but the judge had his reasons. First-degree murder isn't a parking ticket, it's one of the gravest charges in the game. And when the prosecution looks like they've got receipts, Bond becomes a long shot. Worried Melly might tamper with the case or take off, they kept him. Locked, there's also strategy involved. Keep the pressure on him. Maybe get a plea deal. Maybe even get him to talk. Now, let's talk about a wild twist. Suge Knight the 1500-meter away. In California, he was facing similar, violent charges and still got Bond, his defense. Brought up health issues, financial burdens, and claimed he wasn't a flight risk. Despite all that, the court still set Bond at $25 million, one of the highest in California. History, Knight couldn't pay it, and stayed locked. But still, he got the chance. Melly didn't. Even get the offer back to Mellier's case, whether you believe he's innocent or guilty. The timeline is brutal and the state ain't playing. Checkers, they're playing 5D chess. At trial, prosecutors pulled out digital receipts from an Instagram DM with Pezzi Gambino. On October 26, 2018, Pezzi allegedly asked Melly, "You good?" Melly's reply, "I did that shot." Now that's damning unless it's not. Melly's lawyer, Stuart Adelstein, clapped back. He argued that Melly usually typed it as that, not that. He said it didn't match his writing style. Prosecutor Christine Bradley wasn't buying it. She showed messages, and even lyrics, where Melly did use that. Instead of that, she was like, "Nice try, but no." Then there's the crime scene. Footage cameras allegedly caught Melly and his boys hopping into a Jeep before the murders. Later, the same Jeep was found, with 2 dead bodies inside. YW Sack Chaser and YNW Juvie, both shot up bad. Ballistic evidence pointed to these shots coming from inside the vehicle, and the position exactly where Melly was. Sitting gun never found. Gunpowder residue. Nope. But the prosecution claims this wasn't a drive-by. It was from within the crew. My determination was that this is not a drive-by shooting, and it's based upon this picture here, which is a very good picture, to describe its shooters at a stationary position. When all but one of these rounds atone, point the prosecution rolled out. Their so-called gang expert, Danny Pelotto, strengthened their case polo. Didn't hold back. He testified that YNW Melly wasn't just brushing shoulders with the G-Shine Bloods. He was deep in it according to Polo. Melly knew every hand sign, threw up gang references without hesitation, and his texts full of coded gang slang that only insiders would recognize. And what does hurt? Mean hurt is a term used by members of Gishineum to refer to each other. It's like calling each other. Bro, the state didn't stop at just words. They brought photo stacks and phone data to paint a bigger picture, pushing the narrative that these murders might have been gang-related. They never clearly explained what the G-Shine Blood stood to gain, but they dangled that theory in front of the jury like bait. Then came the digital footprint. FBI Special Agent Brendan Collins mapped the phone locations of Melly and YNW Bortland on the night the murders went down. Their phones pinged near the crime scene, but not always in sync. Collins admitted he couldn't put both devices at the exact spot together at the exact time, and Rumour, Detective Mark Moretti, backed that up, explaining no phones were tracked directly at the scene because Mellier's phone location was switched off. But the prosecution had something else: surveillance footage that showed Melly being picked up by rapper Fredo. Bang. Just after the murders, then came the forensics DNA analyst Kurt Rhodes with the Broward Sheriff's Office tested a water bottle and a spent shell casing from the Jeep where the murders happened, but none of it matched. Mellier's DNA directly still. Partial DNA sample, possibly Mellier's, was found on the rear passenger side door handle, the same side where the fatal shots were believed to have come from. But that wasn't even the state's boldest move. No Florida prosecutors pulled a page from the hip-hop police playbook and decided to use Melly's own lyrics against him in the retrial, according to the Miami Herald prosecutor, Alexander Buckaloo, filed paperwork to enter a laundry list of Melly's work into evidence songs, 18 raw audio files, 14 YouTube videos, and 4 album covers among them. Melly's breakout hit, Murder on My Mind, the track that blew up his name and now threatens to be his undoing, prosecutors claim these lyrics reveal Melly's state of mind, maybe even his motive. It's not the first time lyrics have been used this way, but it's one of the most controversial tactics in modern courtrooms. Why? Because jurors often let bias creep in. Instead of judging the facts, they start judging the persona, especially when the defendant is a young black rapper. Take the YSL Rico case as a preemie example. Prosecutors pulled Young Thug's lyrics and tied them to 10 different overt acts to support the conspiracy charges. This wasn't just about songs anymore, it was about lifestyle, language, and image. When the indictment dropped last May, over 24 YSL associates, including Gunner, were swept up the 88-page document labeled YSL, a criminal street gang, listing 182 different acts. Everything from murder to aggravated assault to simply wearing slime apparel. Each of the 28 defendants was also charged under the RICO Act, accused of running an organized criminal operation for profit, and even rap lyrics from other artists like Eostomous Juice, WRLD Single were name-dropped in these courtroom attacks. Out of the 28 defendants, 6, including Young Thug, are now on trial. The case started on November 27th in Atlanta and could stretch for the entire year. But this method of using rap lyrics as courtroom, it didn't start with YSL back in 2012 during Boosie's murder trial. A Louisiana judge allowed lyrics from his track 187 into evidence. Bobby Shmurda in 2014 had his viral hit, Hotna, dissected under the lens of gang ties, even though it wasn't formally submitted as evidence when questioned. Bobby said it straight, "I'm guilty for where. Livy was never part of no gang." And let's not forget Draco the Ruler. Prosecutors pulled lines from his music in an attempt to tie him to murder. Even 6ix9ine's lyrics got dragged into his gang. Related federal case, critics have been loud about the dangers of this practice. Their good unfairly targets Black and Latino artists, conflating their artistic expression with real-world crimes. In 2020, Maryland's highest court ruled the trap. Lyrics can be used in murder trials. Attorney Dina Lefkowitz told Variety that the decision was blatantly racist and set a dangerous precedent. In response, Jay-Z and other icons-backed Senate Bill S-7527, also known as Rap Music on Trial, a proposed New York law aimed at stopping the courtroom weaponization of rap. The bill argued that lyrics are free speech, not confessionals, and should be treated as performance, not proof. In January, it cleared committee, and now it's headed for a full Senate and Assembly vote. Senator Brad Hyman, who sponsored the bill, told Fox 5 NY, "This isn't about letting criminals walk. It's about protecting the First Amendment and recognizing rap for what it is, an art form, not an indictment." Wone never thought that you Johnny Cash was going to shoot a man in, and Reno just to watch him die, or Bob Marley shot Ashraf but spared a deputy. But that's exactly what prosecutors are trying to convince juries about across this country. The legislation under in Landmark moment. Legislation first proposed in November 2020 finally started gaining traction on October 12, 2021, when it cleared the Senate Codes Committee. The first step toward a full Senate vote. And the voices backing this bill heavyweights. Jay-Z stepped in with his legal powerhouse Alex Spiro, who made it crystal clear this isn't just important to Jay, it's important to every artist who believes in creative freedoms. Spiro, a partner at Quinn Emanuel and Sullivan, co-wrote a powerful letter with Professor Eric Nielsen, co-author of Rap and Trial, and Professor Andrea Dennis from the University of Georgia, they didn't just want to help Melly, they were fighting to change the game. For everyone, Spiro said, if we change the law here, we don't just help one artist, we send a signal that the system is evolving. Fat Joe echoed the sentiment in a statement to Rolling Stone, saying, our lyrics are art, they shouldn't be twisted into evidence. Rap deserves the same respect as any other genre. One voice, however, never got to see that change happen: Draco, the ruler before. He was murdered in 2021. He endured this practice firsthand. Though acquitted in a 2016 murder, Draco spent 3 years behind bars because prosecutors used lines from his Track Flex freestyle to claim he masterminded a violent plot even, though he wasn't. The shooter and the supposed target wasn't even at the event. Draco later said, I didn't even know they could do that, the way they twisted it. It just didn't make any sense. Senator Jamal Bailey spoke out clearly. You shouldn't be convicted just because of the genre of your music. The proposed bill demanded a direct factual connection between lyrics and actual rhymes before they could be introduced. In court, Bailey slammed the way courts were using hip-hop to criminalize black youth, calling it systemic racism in action. And while laws slowly shifted, real lives were being shattered. Let's rewind to the tragedy that sparked this entire controversy in 2018. The hip-hop world was rocked when two of YNW Melly's closest friends, Anthony YW Sack Chaser Williams and Christopher Yinu Juvie Thomas Jr., were found dead. Behind these stage names were two young men full of life, hope, and potential. YNW Juvie wasn't just another artist chasing streams. He was described by family as kind-driven and passionate about using music to escape the violence around him. Sack Chaser was charismatic and ambitious, working on building opportunities for other young creatives in his neighborhood. They weren't just rappers. They were pillars of their community. Their deaths tore a hole in the hearts of everyone who knew them, Melly claimed. It was a random drive-by shooting. He said they were victims of violence, not the source of it. And for a moment, the world believed him. But behind the scenes, investigators weren't buying it. Their doubts grew. The story started falling apart, and then everything changed. Police suddenly named Melly himself as the shooter, and alongside him, they arrested Cortland, YW Bortland, Henry as an accomplice. The charges were staggering: 2 counts of first-degree murder. A conviction could mean life in prison. Or worse, according to prosecutors. On October 26, 2018, Melly and his crew were riding through South Florida when gunfire erupted inside the car. Within minutes, both Juvie and Sack Chaser were fatally shot. So what was the motive? Some whispered it had to do with a brand deal gone wrong, a jealousy-fueled fallout over fame and fortune. Others pointed to ego and betrayal, whatever the reason. The consequences were irreversible ballistics came in the bullets retrieved. From the victims matched a weapon registered to Melly. More chilling, the trajectory showed. The shots came from inside the vehicle, and from the exact position where Melly was seated. Witnesses stepped forward. They claimed they saw Melly with a gun that night, and some even said they'd heard him make threats to his friends in the days before the shooting. His legal team clapped back hard, calling the case circumstantial, full of speculation, and zero real proof. They insisted Melly had no reason to harm his closest friends, but prosecutors weren't done. They pointed to phone records. Melly's calls placed him near the scene moments before the murders. For investigators, that was one more nail in the coffin. So how did it come to this? Jamal Maurice, Demons better known as YW Melly, was born on May 1, 1999, in Thesmal, South Florida town of G. Ford Froman. Early age, Melly idolized the greats, Michael Jackson, Chris Brown, and dreamed of making it big. But alongside that, dream came something darker in. An old interview Melly recalled, finding a revolver hidden under his uncle's couch in fourth grade. From that point on, he said he took it everywhere, even Scully's brushes. With the law being early at just 16, he was charged with 3 counts of aggravated assault and firing a weapon in public after allegedly shooting at students near a high school. This moment, terrifying and formative, would later inspire the haunting lyrics of Murder on My Mind. Still, Melly's music gained traction fast. He started uploading rough cuts to SoundCloud, and in 2016 joined forces with childhood friends Sack Chaser Juvie and Bortland to form YW, short for Young New Wave. The buzz grew in early 2019, just a month before his arrest. Melly dropped his breakout mixtape, We All Shine It, featured none other than Kanye West on the song Mixed Personalities, which exploded in popularity. The video racked up millions of views. Melly was now a mainstream name. He also teamed up with artists like Young Thug, dropping records that showcased his talent and range. His fan base ballooned, but Not Rack captured the world's attention, quite like Murder on My Mind. Released in March 2017, the song was raw, emotional, and eerie. Listeners were struck by its honesty, but also haunted by the parallels to what came next. The track went multi-platinum, topping charts and turning Melly into a viral phenomenon. His pen was powerful, but now prosecutors claim his lyrics were a confession.